So, if you live in the USA, do you ever wake up in the morning and think to yourself, maybe I just don't want to live in the world's so called greatest country anymore? It's not that you hate it, it's that you've realized being number one doesn't feel that different from being chronically ill. And that's the thing about the United States. It's like living inside a motivational poster that's been hanging in the break room for 50 years. It's obviously deteriorating, but nonetheless, it's still somehow telling you to dream big. Though at this point, it seems the only dream anyone has left is to stop mistaking survival for a personality. As George Carlin once famously said, it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And I find it interesting that you can't really point to a single event that broke it. There was no single meteor strike. It was just a slow motion collapse, a national burnout stretched out over decades. Kind of like an empire that just keeps hitting the snooze button on its own downfall. And every day, you scroll through the news and you think, is this satire or just Wednesday? Because it's getting very difficult to tell anymore. But then you realize in the USA, that's really the same thing. Because we've somehow managed to merge absurdism and capitalism into a single system. One that sells you cosmic dread in a 12-ounce can and calls it an energy drink. Now, I don't know about you, but lately I've started having these intrusive thoughts, I guess. It's not just me, of course. There's a lot of chatter out there about leaving the country. And later on in this video, I want to get into the deeper factors behind this. But for now, what if I just left? Not that I have the privilege to, by the way. But what if? What if I went somewhere a little more sane? To a country that isn't using my tax dollars to bully the rest of the world and that doesn't feel like it's constantly trying to sell me a new identity and a new mental illness to treat with a new subscription plan. And no, it's not that I think life would be magically better somewhere else. I'm not suffering from any grass is greener delusions here. I'm well aware that no place on planet Earth is exempt from corruption and various degrees of hardship. It's just, I'm genuinely curious what it would be like to live in a country where the default mood isn't a growing underlying sense of dread and disillusionment. That's if such a place even exists, of course. Because here, every moment feels like you're sprinting towards a finish line that just keeps moving further away, and someone's live streaming it and capitalizing on your suffering. But instead, you just keep plodding onward as your health and your hope dissipates. You ever notice how Americans talk about freedom like it's a product? it's safe to say that we've commodified the word to the point where it's basically a brand now. Freedom TM, now proudly manufactured in China, shipped to Walmart, and sold with a side of self-delusion and willful ignorance. So the American dream used to mean owning a home, right?
Americans today are going through what is called existential exhaustion, right? They're tired of the chaos, they're tired of the madness that the United States is having. They're tired of everything that they see is happening right on their face. And this leads us to today's discussion. Do you think it's worth it for generally Americans to leave the United States and seek asylum to a safer place? That's just a question that I'm just asking, right? And now, in this video, we are going to explore this reality, this truth. For the longest time, I've tried hosting functional melancholic, you know, is wisdom. I try to understand and share with my community is wisdom, right? Because it shares an important perspective because people are tired of all the chaos and everything that is happening in the United States. We also have people that will tell you that the new American dream is indeed to leave the United States and try to find a better life or try to find something good with your life, something that can change your life because the social life of the United States is as good as dead. And people have talked about this, people have documented about this. But I liked functional melancholic perspective in regards to this because it shares a deep analysis and it gives a deep with good analogies that I feel like it's important for us to talk about this. And for those who don't know, the person who's talking in the video is called Functional Melancholic. Please go check out his content. He's really doing a great work. I mean, I really like this piece because I've seen a lot of American blacks. I've seen a lot of Americans generally really struggling, and people are looking ways of leaving the United States. And so I think this is an important topic for us to discuss, especially in these times when we are seeing all these challenges coming into place, brothers and sisters, right? Now, I believe that it's important for us to talk about these topics. They really shade light onto what I believe should be discussed, as you know that many Americans are choosing to leave the United States because the nation they once believed in offered stability, opportunity, and social order no longer feels recognizable. And for decades, Americans projected an image of prosperity. Middle class families buying homes, children attending good schools, community feeling safe, and the broader society functioning with predictability. But over the last 15 years, this idea of normal America has collapsed. The cost of living has exploded. We just failed to keep up with the inflation. And the social safety nets that supported modern life, that's healthcare, that's housing, that's education, have weakened dramatically. At this pressure point, as this pressure mounts, people no longer feel that America is a safe place. They can build and have a secure and dignified life. The emotional shock of watching once a stable society unravel drives many to consider starting over elsewhere. So, brothers and sisters, I just want us to listen to what he has to say in regards to this and get the most out of it. Importantly, let's learn, right? So, let me see you after he's talking, and then we'll come and have a discussion in regards to this, brothers and sisters. So, let's watch. I'll be back.
Now, it just means owning some hope, which is, of course, much cheaper, but still somehow more exhausting. And we live in the so-called richest nation on earth, and yet somehow half the country can't afford to see a dentist. And we spend billions of dollars convincing ourselves that we're happy, and then billions more recovering from it. It's an empire built on pharmaceuticals and cognitive dissonance. I read once that civilizations tend to collapse not when they run out of money, but when they run out of meaning. And that's pretty much where we are. The money's still flowing, sure. It's just flowing upward. But the meaning part, well, that's evaporated. And we replaced it with marketing, and we turned identity into a logo. Then we took community and citizenship, and we turned them into a subscription model and basically a customer loyalty program. And somewhere in all that noise, all the hustle and the hashtags and the self-help podcasts, something went silent inside of us. Something that used to whisper, maybe life doesn't have to feel this hard. But that whisper's been basically drowned out by all the constant notifications, the debt collections, the omnipotent advertising, and not to mention the sound of your neighbor's Amazon package hitting the porch for the third time that day. So, yeah, sometimes I think about leaving. And it's not in some dramatic, I'm moving to Bali kind of way. Just in a pensively desperate way that you fantasize about, like walking out of your own life mid-scene before you have to deliver the same tired line for the millionth time. And you don't even hate the role. You're just done pretending that the plot still matters. You know what I find funny is every country has its propaganda, right? But here in the U.S., we turned ours into a lifestyle brand. And the reason is that the American dream, it wasn't just an idea. It was our most successful export. It sold better than Coca-Cola, Christianity, and democracy combined. The old adage, work hard, play by the rules, and you'll make it. That was the pitch. A very simple, but nonetheless intoxicating story. But like most great marketing campaigns, it was built on selective storytelling. A little truth sprinkled in over a mountain of bullshit. Because what it really meant was you work hard for someone else, enriching their profits, play by their rules, and maybe you'll get just enough comfort to not question why you're struggling and miserable. The American dream, it's kind of like a pyramid scheme run by dead presidents. The people at the top sell hope to the people at the bottom, who then sell that hope to the next generation. And by the time you realize it's a scam, you've already named your kid Chase and taken out a 30-year mortgage on despair. And we're all raised to believe that success equals happiness. We hear this constantly. And that failure is an unforgivable moral flaw. And if you're struggling, well, that's because you just didn't want it bad enough. as if poverty is a personality trait. The truth is, the dream was never about everyone succeeding. It was about making everyone believe they could, just long enough to keep them working. To keep them chronically indentured to the system. The U.S. has become like a giant casino. It's the place on the world stage where you go to take your shot at hitting it big. And of course, everybody thinks they're going to win, but they don't. Because most just gamble. They gamble it all and lose. And sure, there's a few winners once in a while. Just enough to keep the rest of us thinking that we too are going to be big-ass winners, to quote Charles Bukowski. And you see this everywhere now. If you listen carefully, you can hear in the background this low hum of collective exhaustion. It's basically exhaustion disguised as motivation. And we try to put this toxically positive spin on it and call it hustle culture, which is just corporate capitalism's way of saying, sorry, we ran out of jobs, but here's an identity for you instead. Now, everywhere you look, people are trying to turn their hobbies into side hustles, and their side hustles into some sort of brand. So, we've made survival look like a lifestyle choice. I mean, I know people who can't go on a walk without feeling guilty that they're not monetizing it somehow. As if by not turning your relaxation into passive income, you're doing life wrong. That's the convoluted genius of American capitalism. It convinced us that everything should have a return on investment, even our joy and our pain. And the older I get, the more I realize the U.S. doesn't actually care what you do as long as you're doing something. And it's usually something you don't like, or even something downright soul-crushing. Because you got to hustle constantly. You got to keep moving, keep buying, posting, performing, planning, strategizing, investing, and on and on and on. Because the moment you stop, well, the illusion starts to crack. And, we can't have that. Not here. So that's why rest feels rebellious here. Because stillness exposes how hollow it all is. The moment you sit down and breathe, you realize you're not really living in a country. You're living in a commercial that just never ends. And, we were told this was the land of opportunity. And it might be, but only if your opportunity happens to align with what the market values this decade. But if your dream doesn't make anyone else money, then for the most part, all you've really accomplished is inventing poverty with extra steps. Sometimes I think the American dream didn't actually die. It just got massively outsourced. It's alive and well in whatever country that we exploit next. We build factories in other nations, promise them a better life, and call it progress. And meanwhile, back home, we can't even afford the products they make. Does that make sense? So, yeah, maybe the leaving the US isn't just about geography. It's about getting out of a mindset that's been baked into us since birth. It's this belief that life's all about competition and hierarchy, that rest is laziness, and that if you're not constantly achieving and constantly strategizing for the future, you're basically decomposing. But still, for all its chaos and contradictions, this place is hard to quit. Because every now and then, you catch a glimpse of what the dream could have been. Those rare moments of decency, creativity, and a real human connection that somehow survived between the cracks. It's kind of like watching the embers of a fire. You're still seeing some light, even though the flame burned out some time ago. You know, George Orwell warned us that totalitarianism would come with boots and whips. But de Tocqueville was closer to the truth. He said, one day people would willingly trade their freedom for comfort and live as, and I quote, a flock of timid and industrious animals. Well, sounds like he was correct, because here we are. The not-so-United States, land of the fee, home of the broke. Now, I don't think it's a stretch to say we've built a nation where freedom basically means you can pick any flavor of a cage that you want. There's the mortgage cage, a student loan cage, a corporate cage with subpar benefits and dental, and there's a gig economy cage with none of the above. Take your pick. They all come with Wi-Fi these days. And everywhere you look, people are exhausted. They're overworked at jobs they dislike if they have a job. And yet, still somehow they're convinced that they're lucky to be here. Because we've been effectively brainwashed to lick the boot of the system. And that's the magic trick of the American corporate capitalism. It doesn't actually need to oppress you anymore. It just convinces you to oppress yourself. So you wake up at 5 or 6 a.m. or whenever, drink your overpriced coffee, and scroll motivational quotes on social media presented by the elite trying to sell you another productivity app. You know, we don't really live in an economy anymore. We live in a subscription plan. For example, you don't own your home or your car, and now you don't even own your data. You just rent everything until you die. So basically, it's feudalism with customer service. And bad customer service at that. You've got your new royalty, the tech billionaires, who basically control what you see and what you buy and increasingly what you believe. And, well, the crowns have just been replaced with hoodies and baseball caps or whatever. And we're the peasants, of course, who generate the content and the outrage with an endless river of clicks. It's the equivalent of tilling the digital soil while they harvest the attention. So, Neil Postman once said that we wouldn't need Big Brother to enslave us because we'd distract ourselves to death. And that's what we're doing. We're voluntarily plugged in, paying monthly for the privilege of being emotionally drained. And meanwhile, the political system pretends to give us a choice, but it's like being asked whether you want to drown in Pepsi or Coke. Two brands, same outcome. And so, we've turned democracy into a customer survey. Just click here to feel like you have a say. And I think maybe the saddest part here is it works. Because we're so conditioned to choose something that will choose illusion over nothing and hope over truth. Eric Fromm once said that most people fear freedom because it comes with responsibility. And he was right, because real freedom is terrifying. Once you see how fake it all is, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending the game is fair. That ship has sailed. And the shittiest part is that you start to realize not only are you trapped in the system's trapped inside of you. I call it the AOS, or the American Operating System. Constant productivity and dissatisfaction, and the belief that if you just try harder, it'll somehow all make sense. But it won't, because it's not supposed to. It was never designed to be fair. It was designed to be profitable. So, when I say I've thought about leaving the U.S., it's not because I hate the country. It's because I'm starting to truly hate the software that it runs on. And I'm not sure you can debug that by voting or manifesting or buying a van and moving to the desert or whatever. I think it's going to take something more, something a lot more. So maybe you can't leave it all, and maybe the only real exit is psychological. All right, so there's this moment that happens in every American's life, usually sometime around your third cup of coffee and your, fifth nervous breakdown. It's when you realize not only are you tired because you need sleep, you're tired because everything here just feels like work. And most of it is bullshit work, as discussed in David Graeber's excellent book, Bullshit Jobs, which I've mentioned numerous times before. Existing in the US is like having a low grade fever that never breaks. It's not necessarily deadly, but it wears you down until you start confusing exhaustion for.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you watching me from. Yeah, I really wanted to discuss about this issue because I'm a believer that sometimes it begins with a discussion and then we can put action into everything that I've said. If you're a normal person, I don't live in the United States. I'll agree with, I'll take that. But I can still observe how people live and all these challenges that are going on. People coming out and complaining about how the social life is dead, the economic life is dead, and all these crazy things that are happening. And this leads me to just one thing that I know for sure that is happening. And this one thing is that we all need to be careful, and because things are changing, people need to make fast decisions, but again, precise, fast, and well thought decisions, because at the end of the day, you might run out of the US and then it doesn't go well the way you want. So I think you need to figure out the best way of surviving in this place. But one thing that I'll give the functional melancholic and everything that is said is that people are living in a state of disillusionment, a state of hopelessness, a state you're not seeing the light. It's all darkness after darkness after darkness and after darkness. And so it is so much hard for the citizens of the United States to see all this light that is outside the United States as a country. There's so much opportunity outside the United States. So as a person who really wants good for collective, America, I think that it's imperative to consider, give it a try outside the United States. Because see, people who have left the United States are really saying that there is life outside the United States. And life should not be expensive. Life should not cost you your mental health. Life should not be so much hard that you have to figure out something that you can put in your mouth. It should not, reach those extents. And so, talking about all these issues that are happening, I think it's imperative to consider the fact that you can get a life outside there and live peacefully and live happily. Live when you are economically well placed, right? Because people are coming out, people who have gone to the United States, and they're explaining you how their lives have changed dramatically. It's not because they left the United States with a lot of money, or it's not because they got it all figured out. But what I'm saying is that these are people that took a leap of faith and left and started something new for themselves. Brothers and sisters, I'm not convincing you to come to Africa. But this is what I'm saying. You can consider coming to Africa, especially if you are a black person in the United States. This is your chance, and take the chance. Don't hesitate, because this is all you need right now. And I'm not seeing anybody talking about the United States becoming better as it was before, right? Because the Make America Great movement is something which is dying. We're not seeing it happening right now. These are all things that happened a long time ago, and we are not seeing them happening again. And so I think it's imperative for you to take that leap of faith. Take that damn leap of faith and start somewhere. I don't know the country that you'll choose. Probably you might want to do some research on that and just find a better place for you, right? I believe you can change your life. I've seen a lot of American blacks killing it in Africa, killing it in the Caribbean, killing it in different African countries that they have gone. And so this just tells you one thing. There is opportunity for everyone that wants to start, or that wants to, start something good for themselves, start something positive for themselves, right? So, the US has entered a period where ordinary life has become financially unstable. Housing prices, they have skyrocketed to the point where even professionals with good salaries cannot afford to buy homes. Rent consumes half of more of many workers' income. Medical bills can wipe out a lifetime of savings in a single emergency, and student debt follows people well into their middle age. So the idea that hard work pays off has broken for millions. From a psychological standpoint, these forces a profound question. What does it mean to remain in a country where labor no longer guarantees survival, dignity, or stability? For many Americans, the economic contract between citizen and the nation feels broken. And once that trust dissolves, so does the desire to stay also dissolves. The psychological and the emotional decline in the country intensifies these economic pressures. Modern America is defined by political hatred, cultural fragmentation, rising racism, conspiracy thinking, and a collective anxiety that sometimes fundamentally has gone wrong. Mass shootings are normalized, children practice active shooter drills, and political leaders speak openly about the possibility of civil conflict. People feel constantly on edge, overwhelmed by the news cycles and uncertain about their future. Philosophically, this creates a deeper question. Should human beings remain in an environment that harms their mental and emotional well being? For many, the answer is no. The pursuit of peace has become the more important than national loyalty. And as people look abroad, they discover that life outside America can offer a very different rhythm, lower, safer, and more humane. Countries in Europe, Asia, Latin America, and Africa provide universal healthcare, affordable education, community oriented lifestyles, and stronger social bonds. Even if salaries are lower, the cost of living and the quality of life balance out really well. These challenges the long held belief that America is automatically the greatest country on earth. The philosophical shift is profound. People no longer see themselves as prisoners of patriotic mythology, but as a global citizens seeking environmental nourish, seeking environments that nourish their humanity. Living becomes an act of choosing life over struggle, peace over chaos, and long term well being over the illusion of American exemptionalism. Um, Yet, some staying in America remains a meaningful and even noble choice. There are individuals who feel a moral responsibility to remain and contribute to rebuild the nation. They believe that running away from the problems does not solve the problem. Rather, societies are transformed by those who stay and fight. For this, for these, there is a hope, and they believe that the country can be healed. They see America as work in progress and not as finished disaster. Remaining in country becomes an expression of civic duty, a belief that there is still something worth saving, and their presence and action matters. Still, you understand that staying requires the acceptance that America is no longer predictable society it was before. Modern America demands high psychological resilience, the ability to navigate uncertainty, and the willingness to live with instability as constant. Some remain because of family ties, professional opportunities, cultural attachments, or fear of adapting to a foreign environment. The philosophical dilemma emerges. Is it wiser to endure the knowledge, the known hardship of one's homeland, or risk the unpredictability of a new beginning? There is no universal answer because each path represents a worldview about what human beings owe to themselves and what they owe to the society they inhabit. Also, from a moral, psychological perspective, philosophical perspective, the decision to stay or to live becomes a confrontation with one's ethical values. If one believes that a personal well being, freedom from stress, and safety are the highest goods, then living becomes the national choice, the rational choice. If one believes that commitment to community, national identity, or the possibility of social change outweigh the personal comfort, then staying becomes virtuous. This tension mirrors classical philosophical debates between self preservation and collective duty, between individuals flourishing and societal obligation, between personal peace and political engagement. So, brothers and sisters, you know very well, is it living or you will stay? So, please let me know what you think and feel about this video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Chitok Stories. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.